Hello and welcome. We are so glad you guys are here. Mom's joining us at home. We miss you, but we hope you're doing a masterpiece and we really want to see it. So post it on our Facebook page. Jesse is actually going to be walking us all through how to make one, and that'll be streamed so we can all see it. And then any of our mamas joining us here, we want to see yours also. I promise to post mine no matter how it turns out. Anyways, welcome to home. We're so glad to have you. My name's Jamie. I realized I haven't introduced myself for weeks. My name's Jamie Cornelis. Have the privilege of leading alongside a group of amazing ladies, and it's just the best part of my week, guys. I'm so glad to be here. Just really all our announcements are, we're happy to see you. We're looking forward to next week. We have another fun thing planned, and if you're not getting our emails, please reach out to us each week. We're going through those, but I know some people have been having issues there. So just reach out to our email or Facebook or text, email, find one of our leaders, however that needs to happen. I hope you guys are going to enjoy tonight. I know you will. And let's get going. All right, here's Jessie.
Okay, I think I'm on. I think I'm good. You guys can hear. Cool. So I'm going to show you two different paintings that you can do that use very similar techniques. And so I'll just show you kind of finished products, and then I'll walk you through both of them. And if you don't want to do the one with the solid background, then you can just kind of enjoy or watch during that section. And then when we get to the actual leaf printing part, then you can jump in on that. But so the first one is you paint a solid background, and then you stamp leaves on the top of it. So essentially we're making natural stamps. So I'll show you that technique in just a minute. And then the other technique is not painting a solid background. You just start with the white and you do your leaf prints first, and you kind of use this technique to paint around it. So I'm going to show you that one second so that I can get my background drying. But we have plenty of canvases for people who are live, so if you want to do both, I say do it, because it's already out and you should use it up. And if you're at home, you can grab an extra canvas or piece of paper and walk through both of these. So our leaves, I chose to do fall colors for my leaves, like reds and oranges and warm colors. And so I chose a cool color for my background. So like cool colors are blues, greens, grays. So you can choose whatever you want. You can make it whatever colors you want. You can make your leaves whatever colors you want. But that's kind of what I'm going to demo, because that's what I like. So for my background, I think I'm going to do like that cool color palette of blues, maybe some greens, maybe some purples. And so I've got my paints all kind of laid out in like primary colors, and I have a couple of other added colors that are just hard to create, like brown and like an emerald green type of color. But you can use the extra spaces that you have to make whatever colors you want. I'm going to mix up a little bit of purple with my red and blue. And if you want it to be kind of a deeper purple, you add more blue. If you want it to be kind of a pinky purple, you add more red. And then you can always add white or black to any color to make it a darker hue or a lighter hue. And so you can just kind of play around with it. The thing I love about this background is I create kind of the main color that I want, but then I mix in the other pure colors and just blend it on my canvas. And so it's really forgiving, and you can kind of just keep going over it. If you don't like the section that you did, you can kind of go back. And so this part I find really relaxing, because it's like you don't have to be really careful. You don't have to be really precise, and your color can change if you're like, I don't really like where that's headed. I kind of wanted some more teal in there. You can mix some new colors and get that going. At your station, you should have a little cup of water, as well as a rag, and then multiple different types of brushes. So I didn't comment on that. For backgrounds, a nice flat big brush is what I like to use, just because it covers really fast, and it covers really thin. And so you can get a lot on there. I'm also using acrylic paint, so I'm not using anything fancy. It's just kind of student grade acrylic paint you can find at Michael's. I also like Blick.com for ordering online. It's inexpensive and pretty good quality. You can find canvases there too. So we're just gonna get our cool colors all over that background. And I'm mixing paint as I go and kind of making it up. It looks kind of rainbowy right now. My 5-year-old would really like that. I know, I'm inspired by 5-year-olds and 3-year-olds, even when I'm not at home. Rainbows. And unicorn. Yeah, I don't know if a unicorn will end up in my fall scene, but it's too early to tell. The night is young. We might get some leaf unicorns. So I'm kind of doing like a gradient too, kind of fading green to purple. Just go with your feeling. Another thing that I'll mention, I probably should have told you at the beginning, is I like to paint on these wraparound canvases. The canvas goes all the way to the back and on the edges. I like to paint my edges because then I feel like I can just hang it up and it looks nice. You can also tape off your edges and put it in a frame or paint it a different solid color, kind of as a painted frame as well. And you can always go back and do that after the fact too. So I like to put a coat all along the edges. For people in the room too, if you see a color up here at the front that you don't have and that you want, you feel free to come up and grab extra colors or extra brushes. Or if you need more of a certain color. My green color, so I mixed the emerald I have on your paint tray with the blue, but I think I mixed a little bit more green than blue. Yeah, sorry, yeah. So we're working on this one right now, but we have plenty of canvases if you want to do both types that I'm going to show you. So this one is the background painted and then leaves stamped on top. And then there's another one where we do the leaf stamps and then you kind of paint around the leaf to get the background effect, and it is just different. So we'll do this one second so this one has a chance to dry. Yeah, there is a little bit of white space on this one. Yeah. Well, so Jenny asked if I wanted the background to be dark. I just want it to be a contrast to whatever my leaf colors are. So whatever colors you choose or you're kind of thinking about for your leaves, you want something opposite. So like if you were going to do purple leaves or kind of darker gray black leaves, you might want a brighter background, like a lighter color, a yellow or a brighter green. I like the traditional fall leaf colors, so like reds and yellows and warmer colors for the leaves, and so I chose cool colors for the background. Yeah, so Jenny was asking if I do long brush strokes to avoid a streakiness, and I kind of do. So I'll get you know, a decent amount of paint on my brush, not dripping, but there's a glob on there. And I'll kind of start with that and then spread it out. And then once I kind of get the paint where I want it, I'll go back over it and just smooth so that you don't see any of those brush strokes. And with dark colors on a white canvas, sometimes you do have to kind of go back over different sections of it. With this leaf print, it's really forgiving. So if you have little brush strokes or anything underneath, a lot of them will disappear once you start putting your leaf prints over the top. And so it kind of covers up any little thing that you're like, I don't know, that didn't really go the way I wanted it to. Yeah, you got to get the bottom edge. I know, if you could see my paint area, this is like the nicest, cleanest paint area I've ever used. Usually I'm like spread out all over the floor with multiple canvases and plastic, and yeah, it's usually on my shoe, and then I walk in the house, and you know. Okay, so I'm kind of got my primary layer on there, and it's looking the way that I want it to. So I'm going to set this off to the side so it can dry. The nice thing about acrylics is if you get just a nice thin layer, it's going to dry really quick. And it's super forgiving, so you can always, can I hand this off to you? Maybe just set it on a table somewhere. Thanks. Yeah, it's super forgiving. So with acrylics, if it dries, you can always paint over it really easily. You can always paint it white and start over. That's what I do a lot if I have extra canvases that I was just like experimenting or trying something out, and I was like, I don't want to buy a whole bunch of new canvases, and I don't really want all these extra paintings. You can just paint it white and then paint something else. And acrylics, they're real thin, and they're water-based, so you can mix water with them and just thin them out and layer over things, and it's really, really nice. So while we're waiting for that background to dry, we are going to do this other painting. And again, I like the traditional fall leaf colors. You can do whatever colors you want. So I'm going to do reds, oranges, and yellows for my leaves. And then I'm going to choose like cool colors. For this example, I used purple, blue, and white, and just mixed them on my canvas, and it kind of turned into this purpley gray with some hints of red and hints of blue that popped out. And I think I really like the way that this turned out because it kind of looks like a rainy sidewalk with leaves that kind of fell on it. But I think I wasn't fully in love with the red that I chose because it was too similar to the leaves, and it just kind of blended in areas that I was like, eh. So I think on my example tonight, I'm gonna stick with the red, orange, and yellow, but really stick with those cool colors, so only blues and purples and grays for that background. So on your table, you will also find a tray like this. You can use an extra piece of paper, you can use just a piece of plastic. You just need a surface to kind of load your leaf so that you don't get paint everywhere. And you can use any kind of leaf, but I went outside and looked on the underside of the leaves. You can see the veins pop out a little bit. And you want a leaf that kind of has some good depth to it. Like you can actually see the veins and feel the veins popping out. So a few different leaves. I grabbed grape leaves, and those worked really well. I have some eggplant leaves here from my garden I was like, ooh, that really has a good texture to it. And then I think this is like a maple leaf or something. I'm not a leaf expert. I have some strawberry leaves, but whatever leaves you like, you can try a bunch of different kinds. If you're at home, gather up a bunch of different ones and just try them out on paper and see what happens, see if you like it. I actually don't have water. Can I trade somebody for Thank you. Yeah, so you're going to flip your leaf over. And I used the big flat brush for this one as well. And you can kind of, you'll be able to see your brush strokes as you kind of pull your paint and mix it and go around. So you can decide if you like the look of that big wide stripe or if you like the look of a smaller brush. But I am going to load my leaf with my big wide brush because it doesn't really matter. So when you're loading your leaf, you want to flip it so that the vein sides are the printing, the side that's going to print down with the leaf colors, whatever color you want for your leaf. And I do. I just really like those pure, warm colors. And so I just kind of stick them right on there. And I just blend right on my leaf. I like the way that looks. You can keep it really separate. You can have like just a line. It's really separated. I don't think you can see my water, but anytime you want to clean your brush out, just clean and tap. And then I've got a wet rag, and I just tap my brush on that just to get all the extra colors out. Like especially, I was going into yellow, and yellow just picks up all the other colors. And so if I want a nice pure yellow, then I want to rinse my brush out before I get it on there. So once I've got my leaf, you don't want it like soaked with paint, but you do want a good amount of paint on there. And before I do that, I'm going to mix myself up some more purple because that's what I want to use. Ooh. That was probably not a very attractive sound for everybody at home. I'm sorry. bending down. Yeah. So, like, my daughter is in kindergarten, and so she's doing online classes with the hybrid program, and so she has an art teacher and a PE teacher and a music teacher, and they kind of send her lessons each week. And so her art teacher has been sending her lessons. That's like my highlight of my week. He's like going on her Seesaw program. I'm like, ooh, it's time for art. And so he was talking about color theory and mixing colors and kind of putting colors next to each other in the color wheel. So I'll give you a very fast crash course. If you have zero experience with color mixing at all, there's 3 primary colors, blue, red, and yellow, and those 3 colors can be mixed together, and then by adding black or white, you can get any hue of any color, which is pretty cool. So red and blue mixed together would be purple, and red and yellow mixed together would be orange, and then green is from mixing yellow and blue together. And then, so you can kind of get all the different shades and everything. So, okay, we've got our leaf. We loaded it. I call it a loaded leaf. And you're just gonna place it on your canvas. You might find this easier to do laying flat on your table, but you can experiment. So I'm gonna do it up so that people can see. But you're gonna hold your leaf, and this first one you get away easy because your finger doesn't get all smudgy. And you're just gonna take your cool paint, your opposite color paint, and you're gonna just paint out from the center of the leaf. Oops, I didn't want to use red. That's why this is so forgiving. You can just cover it up. So you, at the same time that you're painting out on the edges and kind of blending that whatever colors you have on the outside, you're also pressing down your leaf so that the colors that you loaded onto your leaf are getting printed onto your canvas. Oop, don't wiggle. And you kind of just have to be gentle, holding your leaf and You're probably going to get paint on your finger. So, you know. Mm-hmm. For this one, I'm doing blue, purple, and white to make kind of a gray hue. Just anything that will contrast with the warm colors in your leaf. And so I'm just going over now. I'm making sure I have kind of those stripies that I want all the way around, and I'm just making sure I got every section of my leaf pressed down into my canvas. So when you feel like you are good, you get the big reveal. This is my favorite part. Oh, isn't that amazing? I know I get way too excited about it, but it's so beautiful because, you just, that contrast that you get and the leaf. And so you can, I was finding that as I was experimenting with it, you can use your leaf for another print right away. You don't necessarily have to load it with more colors, but it's not quite as bright. It's not quite as full. And now that I'm looking at mine, I don't think I put enough paint on it, or it probably dried while I was talking. So I might stamp over that same one again. But that's my whole leaf, yeah. Oh yeah, just I paint the whole thing. So when you stamp it down, you want to paint all around the edges so you get that edge effect, but you also want to paint over the top of your whole leaf so that it smushes down and makes like a stamp. I painted it a little bit, but then it kind of got covered up, so. Ooh, yeah, I'm seeing some of the people here, what they're coming up with. It's really pretty. You can get a new leaf or use the same leaf multiple times. I found when I was making mine too, it was really pretty to do. It looked really natural to do the same type of leaf, but 2 different sizes. I liked the way that the effect that had. It kind of looked like something you might find in nature. Mm-hmm. For each around the edge. Yeah, it's a variation of those same 3 colors. And then you just want to watch. I almost just painted over my other leaf. So you just kind of have to watch out where you're painting so you don't overlap leaves you already have there. No, it's okay. Questions are good. So Jenny just asked, did I say in what way this is forgiving? I feel like it's really forgiving. Well, I painted over the stem, and so I just kept going and decided, okay, I'm not going to have a stem on my leaves. It's just going to be the leaf part. I also added in a color on the background that I didn't want, and because I was like, oh, I didn't really want red to be in my background because it's too much like my leaves, and I accidentally dipped red. And so I was just like, well, I'll just add some more blue because red and blue make purple, and I have purple in there. Or I'll just grab some purple, like right here, I have put a little bit too much red, so I'm going to grab some purple and just paint over it and just remix a new color right on there. And I'm noticing I'm forgetting to to press down my whole leaf. And so I'm just going to stick it back on where it was and kind of press with my finger a little bit harder. Because I think this brush that I'm using is not pressing down as much as I want it to. It's a little bit better. you just repeat that process as many times as you want, and you can fill in the white space in between the leaves. You can leave, so you can kind of see, let me back up so you can see it. You can kind of see there's a white spot right here in between two leaves on the edges where I was painting. And I found that when I was painting on my previous one, when I had those white spaces along the edge, I just stuck a leaf in the spot, and it overlapped my background colors just a little bit, but it created kind of another cool effect because you could kind of see it layered over the background, but it still had that, with the white area, it still had the leaf print. So you can decide what you want to do with those white spaces along the edge that just kind of start showing up in between your leaf prints. You can paint over it with the background color, or you can stick another leaf print over the top of it. It's up to you. Yeah, you could just put it on the plastic. Maybe that could be a work of art too. The first time I was doing this, Eleanor, my daughter, was watching me, and she saw me paint that first leaf before I stamped it down on the canvas, and she was like, "Oh, ooh, that's beautiful." And I was like, "Oh, okay, like maybe we should just paint the leaf and then call it." So she painted a few leaves and was just happy with that. You might get that far and then be like, and done. So that was one that I didn't repaint the leaf. I just restamped it. So it's a little bit more sparse. It's not quite as bright of a color, and it just creates a different texture. And you probably can't see what I'm doing back here either, but I just have my brushes laid out so I don't have to keep rinsing them out. I can just keep picking up new colors. Or I can keep picking up the same colors on my brush without having to rinse it out. I'm going to try putting a little bit more color on my leaf. See how that works out. And your leaf might get a little bit soggy. You can always wash your leaf just as long as it's really gentle, or just grab a new leaf. Like I was saying, it looks really cool to do the same type of leaf, but just a different size. Kind of gives you that effect of falling from the same tree really nearby, but different sizes of leaves. Jamie just asked, where did I learn to paint? So I studied art in college, just as a secondary minor. I originally studied science and then switched to Spanish and just loved taking art classes, so I took a bunch of art classes. So that's where I originally learned a bunch of different painting techniques. But I think since then it's just been kind of self-taught and experimenting. My favorite kind of art is layered painting. And so that's like mixing in things to your paint to add different textures, or using found objects and adding those on and then collaging over it, and just kind of doing a continued, like never finished artwork. So a lot of my canvases and a lot of my paintings, I just leave laying around. I'm like, ooh, I'll add a little bit more to that, or I'll add another layer onto it. Because I'm a lot more in love with creating the art than having like the final art piece. So I have a lot of half-finished projects or projects I've been working on for a long time. You could just paint over it. Someone was talking about making mistakes, but just paint over it. It will work. Just keep swimming. It's a happy little accident. And with this one, I didn't finish the edges of the other one that I painted. So really, it's up to you whether you want to leave them white or just keep that background color going, or put some leaf prints kind of around the edge. Depending on how you're going to display it or hang it, that might look pretty cool to kind of here. I'll demonstrate what I'm talking about. So you'll load your leaf like normal, and then I'm going to stick it right here in this spot. And since it's on the edge, I'm just going to wrap it right around to do my print. So from the front, you'll kind of just see half the leaf, but if you were to look at it from the side, you would see the leaf continue all the way around. And if your brush is getting muddy, and if your leaf is getting muddy, you can take a minute to rinse it out, rinse out your brush. Maybe grab a new leaf. I love it. Someone just asked, is anyone else making a mess? Yes. We are all making a mess. Yeah, the rag is definitely for fingers and brushes and anything else you need to wash. So my leaf is getting kind of muddy, so I'm going to switch to a different leaf here. I thought it was really fun when I was kind of experimenting with different leaves too. Just the different sizes. I'm going to kind of wipe out my tray just so that my new leaf doesn't get scummy right away. Scummy. Yeah, but the big leaves were actually really fun. It went a little bit quicker, and it just created a really cool, just a really cool effect. Just a nice big fall leaf. And maybe people online who are watching along, if you kind of post your artwork, you can maybe share with us some of your techniques or different leaves you found, maybe different leaves that worked better than others. I did really like the grape leaves when I was working with those from our grapevine. So press that on, right around the edge. And it kind of, when I was doing this, I was kind of not in love with it, but I kept going and kept painting, and then it like hit this tipping point where I started to fill in all of those little places in the background, and it really, all you could see was the leaf and the contrast, and then I was really liking it, because when I had all of those white spaces in between, I was just kind of like, oh, it looks kind of messy, and I don't really know where this is going. But then as I kept filling in, I really started to kind of like that it was really just those two color schemes. The leaves, those warm colors just really contrasted with the cool colors behind them. And then you can kind of see now, I'm picking up some of my background colors in this section over here that is kind of done. And I'm just kind of going back through and blending and filling in spots that I don't like, or spots that I just feel like need a little bit more working to make them blended or smoother, or just need a different color added in. So like over here, there's just a little too bright of a blue. And so I'm bringing in some white and some purple to tone it down a little bit. And just filling in those spaces. And you can kind of see it come together, that it's filled in and doesn't have that white space in between, really. And then I didn't do it on my other painting because the grape leaves they just have a nice, good, flat texture, and so you get all the veins and the nice leaf print, but it just fills in the color really well. And on these, I think this is a maple leaf, but on these leaves, it just didn't fill in really as well as I would have liked it to. So you can always go back in with your brush over your leaf prints and just kind of blend in that color a little bit. I think another way that I might try it is even just with my finger or with my leaf as well, and just kind of retouch and print over different sections of it just to fill in some of that white space. Because it just wasn't quite as deep or filled in as I wanted it to be. I don't know if that makes sense. Interesting. Acrylic is really nice too because you can layer colors. So once your color's dry, you can put a lighter color over the top, and it will kind of shine through, which is what we're gonna do with that background that we painted earlier. And so you'll be able to see kind of what it looks like to layer colors over the top. So after you finish this one, later on, if you want to add another layer of leaf stamps over the top or something like that, you can definitely do that with acrylic. Oh, I just love that big reveal. There's something about it when you peel the leaf off and you're just like, whoa, whoa. It's so beautiful. Fall is here. Okay. I'll show you this kind of edge technique a couple more times over here. My arm is probably right in front of the canvas. I don't think anyone's back there watching. How's everybody doing? Doing good? How are we? Oh, we're okay on time, I think. You might leave with a wet painting, but you can take some plastic with you and hopefully get your car home unscathed. If you're at home, you are good to go. I guess I should have warned you. I'm a very messy painter. I always end up with just as much paint on my fingers and sometimes my face, my apron. Last big reveal. Very cool. So you can, you can keep tweaking this as much as you want to. Just adding new leaf prints. This one I kind of like now that I've finished with it. This other one reminded me more of looking like straight down at a sidewalk once the leaves have fallen. And for whatever reason, this looks more to me like it has motion. And they're kind of falling through the sky a little bit, like a gray wet sky. So I'd probably go back around and just kind of play with my background a little bit. Maybe blend colors just a little bit more and fill in any more of those white spaces. Or I just found a fingerprint. Someone over here was like, I have a fingerprint on mine. You just paint right over it. Here we go. And you can always work, like I said, you can work another layer over the top or just play with it. Just kind of have fun. So I'm going to get my other painting back up here. And we have about maybe 5 or 6 more minutes. And can I get your help, Katie, to get my, I don't know where it was. I think so. Okay, so that original one that you did should be fairly dry, and it doesn't have to be perfectly dry, but as long as it's mostly dry, and you're not gonna pick up any of the paint from the background, then that should be good. You can put it landscape or portrait, either way, and then you're gonna load your leaves like you did before. This one's a little bit less messy, because we're only going to paint one side of the leaf. So I'm going to wash my leaf prepping area again. And this time I'm going to use eggplant leaves. But I am going to stick with that contrasting. So I did my background in the cool colors. I'm going to do the contrasting warm colors of red, orange, and yellow still. It's fuzzy. It feels kind of fuzzy. Yeah, and this eggplant leaf, it does have kind of some texture to it. It's really fuzzy and almost fluffy, so it's kind of soaking up my paint. That's another fun thing about this project is the leaves definitely act differently, react to the paint differently, and just feel different. I was using green bean leaves the other day, and they were just very sticky. And I kept pushing it down kind of with my wet rag, and it kept sticking to the rag. I was like, huh, okay. Maybe I don't want to use those. So you're just going to load your leaf with whatever leaf colors you want, and then you're just going to stamp it right on. And you do have to be careful. If you put a lot of paint on it, it'll get kind of slippery. And so you just gently press it down. You can use your fingers. You can use a sponge. So I have just kind of a sponge paintbrush, or I don't know what you call these, like the sponge on the brush. That will work. I also had some success using like a palette knife. and just kind of evenly pressing it. But you can also use your rag or your fingers too. Just make sure you have a nice clean spot on your rag, and you're kind of doing that same technique as the other painting, just pressing from the middle out, but you're just making sure that you are pressing the whole leaf down. Just want to get all the areas where you had paint. And once you feel like you've got it all kind of pressed down and good, it's time for the big reveal. I know you're excited. Whoa. Ooh, that's cool. So after you check it, I mean, it's kind of like if you did stamping in the 80s. I'm like kind of dating myself. We did rubber stamping a whole bunch with my mom in the 80s. And that first stamp that you do is always kind of like, oh, like, why did it do that? And so that's kind of what this is too. So you can do your leaf stamp on another page or something to test it out a couple times before you just dial it in. Because I can kind of see, I pressed really good around the edges, but I didn't really press around the stem. But I like that. I kind of like that I can see through. So I'm going to leave it. But if you don't like the way that it turned out, then you can redo it. You can stick your leaf right over the top, or you can know for the next one, oh yeah, I wanted to press a little bit more in the middle to really get that middle. So I didn't load my leaf again. I just decided it had enough paint on it, and I like the different texture it creates to have a leaf with more paint on it, a leaf with less paint on it. But you can do it all the same. You can, like I was saying, you can press it onto a different paper and then press it onto your canvas to get less paint so you don't get kind of that ooey gooey, squishy kind of look. And then you're just going to do that as many times as you want. And you can do it as few or as many. Like, I'm kind of liking this simplistic, just maybe 1, 2, or 3 up there. Often in paintings, it will either be symmetrical or it will be an odd number. So like a grouping of 3 or grouping of 5 is more pleasing to your eye than a random grouping of 4. Like if you had 4, you'd want them evenly spaced almost. I was looking online when I was searching and kind of doing research for what I wanted to do, and I found these leaf prints that were actually like leaf patterns. And so they took the leaves and printed them in a circle, kind of going around, and then another layer out in a circle. And so you can do a lot of really cool things with it. I like the abstract, just stick it wherever kind of painting, because I feel like I'm not messing up then. But if you have the patience or kind of the interest to do more intricate patterns with it, you could use little leaves and do just some really cool geometrical shapes and patterns. Yeah, if you make one of those at home, you can post it, show us your ideas. I would love to see what you guys came up with. So we're just going to kind of wrap things up here, finish up like finishing touches, and do our cleaning. And we're super glad you joined us at home. Jamie, I'm not sure if you're going to jump back up here. Okay, so I'll wrap things up. We're super, super excited that you joined us at home. This is going to be recorded, so you can jump back on later and rewatch it several times if you need to or want to. We hope you had a really relaxing time painting and joining us. And now you have a wonderful fall artwork to display in your home or paint over and start again. Let me see. Oh, yes, it does.